The year is to 60 AD, the Roman Empire, already reeling from years of economic crisis, civil wars and barbarian invasions, now faces a new and terrifying threat: total disintegration. The assassination of Emperor Gallienus has left a power vacuum that has attracted the attention of ambitious generals, disgruntled emperors, and even breakaway kings. Over the next 3 decades, these figures will vie for supremacy, each declaring themselves the true ruler of Rome, while the empire crumbles around them. Some will rule 4 years, maintaining their own courts and armies. Others will only hold power for months or weeks, but all of them share one goal: total domination of the shattered Roman world. So who were these so-called 30 tyrants, and how did they bring Rome to its knees? Let's start with the pretenders. After Gallienus's death, Rome found itself without an emperor. The Senate, still reeling from the recent turmoil, hesitated to name a new ruler, leaving the field open to the ambitious. Enter Claudius too, a former gladiator who had clawed his way up the ranks of the Roman army to become a powerful general. With the support of his troops, he seized control of the capital and proclaimed himself emperor. But his reign of terror lasted only for months. Soon, he was assassinated by his own grandmother, Julia Maesa. Yes, you heard that right. His grandmother, a shrewd and ambitious woman. Maesa had pulled strings to get her son, Constantius, made emperor. Now she turned on her grandson, setting her sights on the throne. But before she could seize power, she was killed, along with her son, in a palace coup led by none other than Julia Maesa's other son, Elagabalus. With the family tree chopped down, Elagabalus took the throne, ending the bloodline of Septimius Severus. But his reign would be short-lived as well, undone by the ambitions of another general, Aurelian. As the empire descended into chaos, one man rose to restore order and crush the usurpers, once and for all. But who was this mysterious figure, and what was his connection to Rome's most infamous emperors? Stay tuned to find out. Rome is falling, or at least it seems that way, after the assassination of Gallienus. The Roman Empire is leaderless, vulnerable, and bleeding. The once invincible fighting force of Rome has been scattered to the winds. Its armies are on campaign across the vast frontiers of the empire. Its borders are collapsing under attack, and its people are crushed by famine, plague, and taxes. Worse yet, confidence in Rome's central authority has completely crumbled. In the provinces, the local governors have thrown off their purple shackles and proclaimed themselves independent. Soldiers stationed in far-off provinces no longer look to Rome for guidance and instead turn to their own generals, declaring them emperor. Rebellions and civil wars rage across the empire. Rival states emerge and seize vast territories. Cities raise their own rulers. Even the frontiers, once protected by legions, are overrun by barbarians. Rome is not one empire anymore. It is 3. In the west, a soldier named Postumus rules Gaul, Spain, and Britain like a rival Rome. In the east, the wealthy city of Palmyra seizes control of Syria and Egypt under the cunning leadership of Septimius Odenathus and later his widow, Queen Zenobia, while Rome struggles to hold on to Italy and the core provinces. Later historians will call them the 30 Tyrants, though the true number is far fewer than that. But the name captures the horror of the age. Dozens of rulers are all clawing for power while the empire itself lies broken. Now let me set the stage for our story. The year is 259. For nearly 3 years, the Gallic provinces of the empire have been without an emperor. 3 years ago, the soldiers stationed in Gaul refused to fight for the ineffective ruler, Elagabalus, and instead declared the general Postumus emperor. And since then, he has ruled this part of the empire with an iron fist. Across the Mediterranean, in the east, the situation is equally dire. The province of Syria has fallen into the hands of a cunning former gladiator named Septimius Odenathus. He has already carved out a small kingdom around Palmyra and made himself master of caravan trade in the heart of the desert. But Rome still holds the provinces of Egypt and Asia Minor. And so it seems that Rome has held on to the best part of the empire. But appearances can be deceiving, for in reality, the legions in the east are more interested in plundering the riches of the east than in defending it. And worse yet, even Rome itself is in peril. Bandits roam the Appian Way. The seas are full of pirates, and barbarian tribes are pressing against the northern borders. And inside the city, crime and corruption run rampant. The Senate, once the heart of Roman power, is little more than a shell of its former self. Its members squabbling amongst themselves and too afraid to engage the real issues facing Rome. It is clear to many that Rome needs a strong leader, a new Augustus to restore order and revive the fortunes of the empire. But who could possibly fill such great shoes? Sadly, none of the current pretenders to the purple. Emperor Gordian III. Gordian is the puppet emperor of Rome. A weak-old fool propped up by the Senate. His sons, the consuls, are no better. They squabble constantly and do little to help the empire. If anything, they only make things worse. The treasury is nearly empty. The provinces are in revolt, and the legions are dispirited. Truly, Rome is in desperate need of a savior. But does one exist? Or is Rome destined to fall into chaos and ruin? Only time will tell. This is the fall of Rome, among the so-called 30 Tyrants. Few cast longer shadows than Postumus, the general who defied Rome itself. Declared emperor by his soldiers into 60 AD, Postumus created a rival capital in Gaul. He minted his own coins, wore the purple, and ruled as if Rome no longer mattered. For nearly a decade, his Gallic empire stood strong, even repelling invasions while the emperors in Italy struggled to survive. Yet, like so many before him, his reign ended in betrayal. In 268, Postumus was cut down by his own men after refusing to allow them to plunder a city. In the east, power shifted into the hands of Palmyra. Septimius Odenathus was once Rome's loyal ally, but he declared himself king of kings after pushing back the Persians. But when he was assassinated, his widow, the legendary Queen Zenobia, would seize power. Elegant, ambitious, and ruthless, Zenobia would soon rise as one of the most formidable challengers Rome had ever faced. Other tyrants rose and fell in a blur. Generals were crowned by desperate legions. Governors turned their backs on Rome. Cities declared independence. Some would last only weeks before being murdered by rivals. The empire became a blood-soaked stage, where loyalty shifted with the wind and ambition was rewarded with a blade in the back. Rome had always been a prize worth fighting for, but now the very idea of a single, eternal Rome seemed on the brink of collapse. This is the fall of Rome. From the sands of Syria, Queen Zenobia made her move. No longer content to rule as Rome's ally, she declared Palmyra's independence, and then went further. With her armies at her command, she marched into Egypt, the breadbasket of the empire, seizing its grain supply. She conquered much of the east, from Asia Minor to the Nile, until her realm stretched from the Mediterranean to the Persian Gulf. In her court, she was not just a queen, but a monarch in her own right, styling herself Augusta and her young son as emperor. Her empire gleamed with wealth, trade, and military power, a rival Rome rising in the desert. To many, Zenobia seemed destined to become the new ruler of the East, perhaps even of the whole Roman world. Meanwhile, the so-called legitimate emperors in Rome were drowning in chaos. Civil wars flared, generals plotted, and the provinces slipped further away. As the tyrants squabbled and armies turned their swords on each other, Rome's enemies pressed harder at the frontiers. To the north, Germanic tribes surged across the Rhine. To the east, the Persians struck at the vulnerable borders. It seemed as if the empire itself was unraveling, not under a single enemy, but by the weight of its own divisions. And in this storm of betrayal, rebellion, and ambition, the legend of the 30 Tyrants was born. Rome lay bleeding, a once mighty empire now teetering on the edge of oblivion. The year was 270 AD, and the crisis of the 3rd century had nearly reached its breaking point. Rival emperors and usurpers controlled much of the West, while in the East, Queen Zenobia of Palmyra held the capital of Rome itself, laying waste to the countryside and making war on the very idea of Rome. All seemed lost, but even in its darkest hour, Rome was not yet finished. From the chaos rose a man of iron, Emperor Aurelian, a commander of ruthless discipline. Aurelian was determined to reunite the shattered empire. First, he marched east to confront Zenobia's armies. There in the deserts of Syria, the Romans faced off against Palmyrene cavalrymen. Again and again, Aurelian struck hard, defeating Zenobia's forces and pushing her back to her capital, Palmyra. But the indomitable queen refused to yield. As Aurelian tightened his grip on the city, she fled across the Euphrates River into Mesopotamia. There, while crossing the river, she was captured and brought before Aurelian. Thus ended Zenobia's dream of empire. Her legend, however, would outlast her defeat. Remembered as the warrior queen who defied Rome itself, one by one, Aurelian then crushed the other tyrants. The Gallic Empire was reclaimed, usurpers were executed, and the provinces, though bleeding and exhausted, were dragged back under Rome's rule. The empire, scarred and bleeding, was reunited. Yet the crisis of the 3rd century had taken its toll. In just 2 decades, Rome had seen nearly 30 rival emperors rise and fall. It was a testament to the bloodlust, ambition, and chaos that nearly destroyed the eternal empire. And as history has shown, Rome's greatest enemy was never just barbarians at the gates, but the endless hunger for power within its own walls.